There are two invisible forces fighting for control of your mind. One whispers doubt, the other shouts destiny. Every decision you make is either powered by what you believe or what you fear. But here's the truth. No one tells you fear is not a warning, it's a thief. It robs you of purpose, promise, and power. So the question is, which voice will you listen to today? Fear will always sound logical. It will dress itself in reason, wear the clothes of caution, and sit comfortably in your silence. But faith is unreasonable to the natural mind. It tells you to step out while nothing supports your next move. Faith is the voice that says, go. Even when your surroundings scream, stay. Faith demands you think from a higher place, where the impossible is not a barrier, it's just a waiting room for miracles. The battle is never out there, it's within. You rise or fall based on the thoughts you empower. Think by faith and the path unfolds. Think by fear and the path evaporates. The most dangerous thoughts are not loud and obvious. They're subtle, quiet suggestions that tell you maybe you're not good enough or what if it all falls apart. These thoughts do not come from your higher self. They're imported, planted, disguised. And yet many live their lives obeying them like commandments. But faith is the internal rebellion against anything that contradicts the promise placed inside you. It's not blind. It's visionary. It sees beyond now into what shall be and refuses to negotiate with fear. Every great invention, movement, and transformation began with a thought fueled by faith, not the absence of fear. Courage is not found in those who feel nothing. It's found in those who feel everything and still move forward. Faith does not cancel fear. It outvotes it. When fear says you can't, faith responds, watch me. When fear says it's over, faith declares this is the beginning. The difference isn't the condition, it's the perspective. And perspective is a product of what you choose to think. Fear is a mental virus that infects vision. It magnifies problems, shrinks possibility, and turns temporary obstacles into permanent ceilings. That's why you must be relentless in what you allow to take root in your mind. Protect your imagination. Guard your thoughts. You're either building a future with bricks of faith or constructing a prison with blocks of fear. One mindset frees you. The other keeps you repeating cycles dressed as safety. Don't confuse familiar with true. Don't mistake fear's loudness for clarity. To think by faith is to choose to interpret life through the lens of promise, not panic. It's not pretending everything is fine. It's knowing even when it's not, you are still moving toward purpose. Faith-based thinking rewires your mental map. It shifts you from survival mode to creation mode. You begin to speak differently, walk differently, decide differently. Because your mind is no longer ruled by shadows, it's governed by vision. And vision doesn't ask, is it safe? Vision asks, is it right? You cannot create a new life with the same thoughts that built your old fears. You must reprogram your inner dialogue. No more what if I fail. Replace it with what if I fly. No more why me. Replace it with why not me. Because as long as fear is sitting on the throne of your thoughts, your potential will remain in prison. But the moment faith takes over, your future becomes activated. Think higher. Think greater. Think beyond. Faith thinking is not passive wishing. It's active alignment. It means your actions, words, and thoughts all walk in the same direction. You no longer wait for the feeling to change before you move. You move and the feelings catch up. You declare, then demonstrate. You no longer bow to circumstances, you command them to reflect your belief. That is the power of a faith-filled mind. It bends reality to vision, not the other way around. Look at the greatest achievers in history. They all had every reason to fear, but they chose to think higher. They trained their minds to believe when others doubted. They risked rejection, loss, and ridicule. But the rewards weren't just material. They gained dominion over themselves. That is the ultimate victory, to no longer be ruled by internal fear. You were not born to be paralyzed by what ifs. You were born to live from what is possible. And even when you fall, because faith doesn't guarantee ease, you fall forward. Faith doesn't prevent challenges. It prepares you to conquer them. You learn that failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the soil it grows in. When you think by faith, you stop avoiding storms and stop walking on water. You don't need ideal conditions. You only need a mind aligned with truth. And truth is never afraid. The people who rise are not those who never doubted. They are those who didn't stay in doubt. They allowed faith to interrupt the spiral. They broke the loop. You can too. Every time fear tries to re-enter your thoughts, remember, you have the final say. Thoughts are guests. Don't let fear rent a room in your mind. Kick it out with truth. Replace it with belief. Refuse to think thoughts that limit your destiny. Because what you continually think, you eventually become. And what you become, you eventually live. Choose carefully. Think by faith. Speak by faith. Move by faith. And one day you'll look back and realize fear never really had power, it just had volume. But you turned it down and turned purpose all the way up. Fear comes gently at first, like a whisper in the background, suggesting you take the safer road, avoid the risk, and delay the dream. But faith doesn't wait to be invited. It storms into your heart and challenges your silence. Fear says, what if? But faith says, even if. Fear builds walls, but faith builds wings. The voice of fear is often louder, but never wiser. When you choose to think by faith, you begin to see doors where others see brick walls. Fear wants you to focus on the problem. Faith wants you to lock eyes with the promise. Both speak, but only one should lead. Choose the voice that dares you to grow. When fear says you'll fail, faith says you'll rise. The moment you shift your thinking, your entire direction changes. Life becomes clearer and your steps more intentional. Faith challenges the false limits you've accepted. It doesn't pretend the mountain isn't there. It just tells you that you can climb it. You're not too late. You're not too broken. Faith proves that your next chapter doesn't need permission from your past. The power behind your choices is not always found in action, but in thought. If you consistently think from a place of lack, you'll act small, even when the opportunity is great. But when you think by belief, strong, grounded, unapologetic belief, your actions align with purpose. You no longer ask for permission to be who you were called to be. Every movement becomes intentional, not reactive. Fear convinces you to stay safe. Faith dares you to move forward. You start making decisions based on potential, not pressure. You stop shrinking yourself to fit comfort zones. When faith powers your decisions, you're no longer controlled by outcomes. You act from identity, not insecurity. You rise in moments others freeze. You speak when silence tempts you. You take the next step even if the whole path isn't visible. The quality of your actions is always tied to the origin of your thoughts. Let belief be the engine and fear the forgotten echo. Faith does not deny reality, it redefines it. It looks at the same facts as fear, but interprets them through truth, not trauma. Where fear sees a closed door, faith imagines the key. Where fear sees a storm, faith prepares the sail. It is not blind optimism, it is bold vision rooted in something deeper than circumstance. Faith gives your thoughts a higher assignment. It trains you to trust what's unseen more than what is temporarily visible. Thinking by faith is not ignoring challenges, but refusing to be owned by them. It means your thought life becomes a garden of hope, not a field of worry. You don't just react, you create. You don't just wish, you declare. Vision becomes clearer when fear steps aside. And when your thoughts start seeing with faith, your reality bends toward promise. Your mind becomes a compass, not a cage. That's when transformation begins. The war isn't outside, it's within. Your outer life reflects your inner choices. What you entertain in thought will eventually appear in life. Think from power and power follows. Think from fear and hesitation becomes a habit. If your mind is polluted with doubt, your future will be too. Faith cleans the lens you see life through. It renews your perspective, resets your rhythm, and restores your boldness. Nothing around you has to change your mind is the beginning of breakthrough. You can't control every outcome, but you can control every thought you choose to water. When you think with faith, you stop being a victim of uncertainty. You begin to live like a visionary. The impossible doesn't intimidate you anymore. Delays don't destroy your confidence. Disappointment doesn't redefine your identity because your mind has already crossed over into the promise and your life is catching up. Fear disguises itself well. It shows up dressed as logic, caution, and reason. But beneath it lies paralysis. It asks you to wait, to delay, to settle. It hides behind just in case and calls itself wisdom. But it's not wisdom, it's a thief of time and energy. Faith doesn't always make sense to the world, but it makes sense to your spirit. It pulls you into places you were born to walk in. It invites you to think higher, believe deeper, and act stronger. You were not created to walk small when greatness lives in you. You weren't designed to think in circles when your vision was made to expand. Fear says, stay here, it's familiar. Faith says, go there. It's destiny. The choice is always in your hands. Thoughts become belief and belief becomes behavior. So question what fear tells you and let faith have the final word. It's easy to wait for the right moment, the perfect alignment of circumstances before you move. But that's not how destiny works. Faith doesn't wait, it acts. It sees potential in the present. It doesn't need the world to confirm your readiness. Faith thinking is action-oriented. It says, start with what you have. Don't wait until you feel brave. Courage isn't a feeling, it's a choice. And that choice begins in the mind. What you tell yourself daily either fuels your future or feeds your excuses. Don't wait to be rescued, rise and respond. You're already equipped more than you believe. Faith is the switch that activates what's been dormant. It's the spark that turns plans into pursuit. The best time to believe is now. The best time to begin is always when fear tells you to stop. That's the sign that faith is knocking. Fear will always highlight the size of the mountain. It will measure the risks and recite the past. It wants you to stand still and rationalize your hesitation. But faith brings focus not on what's ahead, but on who you are. It reminds you that obstacles are not indicators to stop, they're invitations to grow. Faith doesn't run from resistance, it thrives in it. The mountain exists, yes, but so does the strength inside you to move it. The one who thinks with faith doesn't obsess over the difficulty. They rehearse the outcome. They see the victory before the battle. They train their minds to expect good things. That expectation changes how they move, how they speak, how they stand. Fear weakens your imagination. Faith fuels it. You don't climb by waiting, you climb by believing. Your mind is your builder. Every thought lays a brick, some build bridges, others build prisons. And here's the truth, no one else can build it for you. You become the architect of your life by what you repeatedly dwell on. Think defeat, and you live it. Think purpose, and you walk it. Faith gives your mind construction plans rooted in vision. Fear gives you blueprints for limitation. The more you think small, the more your life fits that mold. But the more you think upward, outward, and forward, the more space you give for transformation. Faith doesn't just think big, it thinks differently. It questions the status quo. It dares to design a life that matches what's inside your heart. Don't underestimate the power of your inner blueprint. It determines how tall you'll rise. Fear doesn't shout all the time. Sometimes it speaks in whispers, you're not ready. What if they reject you? Maybe this isn't for you. And if you listen long enough, those whispers become your beliefs. But faith isn't always loud either. Sometimes it's a quiet conviction, a still knowing that says, I'm meant for more. Your task is to tune in. Adjust the volume on the thoughts you allow to stay. You don't need the absence of fear to live in faith. You need the courage to ignore fear's voice. Every powerful move you make will be opposed by inner doubt. That's normal. What's not normal is letting it rule you. Faith thinking is about deciding which voice you obey. It's about turning up the sound of truth until fear becomes background noise. The mind is a field. Every day you plant seeds, words, ideas, thoughts. Fear plants weeds quickly if you're not intentional. It grows in silence. It thrives in hesitation. But faith is like a disciplined gardener. It chooses what to allow and what to uproot. You must inspect your thoughts like a watchman at the gate. When fear tries to sneak in, respond with declarations, not doubt. Speak truth until it becomes louder than uncertainty. Train your mind to expect favor, not failure. Discipline your focus. What you feed grows, and what you neglect fades. Faith thinking requires daily attention, daily watering, daily weeding. Don't be surprised when fear shows up. Just be prepared to evict it. Your thoughts create the environment your future will live in. Perspective changes everything. When you look through fear, problems appear bigger than they are. But when you look through faith, those same problems become stepping stones. Fear dims the light of clarity and magnifies confusion, while faith sharpens your inner vision. It lets you see the opportunity inside the opposition. You no longer interpret delays as denials or failure as the final word. Instead, you start viewing obstacles as necessary detours on the way to something greater. A shift in perspective doesn't mean you ignore pain, it means you give pain purpose. You don't ask, why is this happening to me? You ask, what is this growing in me? That question alone changes your energy. It turns anxiety into focus and discouragement into resilience. Faith pulls your eyes upward while fear pulls your head down. Where your eyes go, your thoughts follow. Where your thoughts go, your life follows. So choose to think from the mountaintop, not from the valley floor. The mindset of fear is designed to keep you small. It whispers that your gifts are too insignificant to matter. It convinces you that greatness is for others, not for you. But faith flips that narrative completely. It reminds you that you were never created to stay hidden or play safe. Thinking with faith means realizing that the same breath that formed galaxies formed you with purpose. You stop shrinking around powerful people because you realize power was planted in you too. You stop hiding your voice because faith shows you it was meant to shake atmospheres. You don't need validation to be valuable. Faith thinking awakens your originality. It removes the mask you wear to be accepted and reveals your real strength. Fear compares. Faith creates. Fear copies. Faith leads. When you stop thinking small, you stop living small. And suddenly you feel the weight of your calling more than the weight of people's opinions. Storms will come. That's not a maybe. It's a guarantee. But the way you think determines whether you collapse or conquer during them. Thinking by fear causes you to panic at every sign of trouble. It makes you question your identity when life doesn't go as planned. But faith thinking builds an inner anchor that holds you steady. You stop asking for easy days and start asking for stronger shoulders. You begin to interpret the shaking as preparation, not punishment. Faith doesn't eliminate the wind, but it teaches you how to walk through it without breaking. The storm reveals the strength of your thinking. You begin to find peace in chaos and clarity in pressure. And even when you don't understand the full picture, you trust the painter. Fear says you're being punished. Faith says you're being positioned. Your mind becomes your shelter, not your battlefield, when faith is the foundation. Doubt will always try to dominate your thoughts. It knocks often and loudly, reminding you of every past failure. But faith doesn't require a crowd to believe. It only needs a decision. Even a whisper of belief, when repeated, becomes a roar. You don't need everyone to agree with you. You need to agree with yourself. Doubt's goal is not just to keep you still, but to steal your identity. But faith rebuilds what doubt tries to destroy. It replaces I can't with I must. It takes your what ifs and turns them into what's next. And every time you choose faith over doubt, your mind gets stronger. Not perfect, stronger. Not flawless, more focused. You start to remember who you are instead of who fear says you are. The more you obey faith, the quieter doubt becomes. Until one day its voice can't reach you anymore. Your life will never rise higher than your thinking. Every promotion, every breakthrough, every healed relationship begins in the mind. Thoughts are not harmless, they're blueprints for your behavior. When you think by faith, you stop waiting for circumstances to change before you believe. You believe, and then circumstances begin to obey. Thinking by faith means you take authority over the invisible before it shows up in the visible. You no longer live as a slave to conditions. You live as a creator of them. Every word you speak, every step you take reflects the faith thoughts you've cultivated. Your mental habits start showing up in real life. Blessings find you not because of luck, but because your mind created space for them. Fearful thinking repels what belongs to you. Faithful thinking attracts what's already assigned. So train your mind as the soil where every miracle begins. And what you plant today, you will walk in tomorrow.